Alrighty. Back at it, back at the camera, back at the stream. Let me reload this. Let me see. Cool. Okay, so hopefully this is focusing in for us. There we go. So happy New Year's Eve to anybody who watches the video. I'm live streaming on December 31st, 2022, and very excited to see how 2023 is going to shape up and be even better than 2022 was. So 2023, looking ahead, very excited, but we got to finish up this year. So what I wanted to do today, with a little bit of time, was I wanted to walk you through how I am starting a brand new page of the comic book that I'm working on called The Just. The Just is my new series that I'm working on with Terry Sala, who wrote it. So together we co-created this project, and we're very excited to launch the first book this year, to get it out in everybody's hands, and you'll be able to check out the whole series. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm actually, so book one is completely drawn, and I am now I'm working on book two, and we're getting about to the midpoint of book two. So I'm about to start a new page 17. Very excited about that. So what I wanted to do is show you guys sort of what the script looks like, what I get from the writer, and how I translate that and how I lay out my page and how I do that stuff. So focus, there we go. So this is the script that I got, and what's happening here is there's a character who is she's an archer, but she's also super strong. And what Terry did is he wrote to me, there's dialogue here. And zoom in a little bit. It's not really, it's not critical to what we're going to talk about, but you can see like he gave me the dialogue of what she's going to be thinking as she's fighting. And what I did is I kind of broke that out and said, okay, those word balloons, 1 to 2 word balloons or 1 to 2 sentences per panel is kind of what I go for. If you start to get 3, 4, 5 sentences somebody's saying or thinking, it's too much to fit into just one panel of a page. You're really talking about a spread, maybe some narration, stuff like that. You want to give it more room to breathe for the reader. So this is what I did is I broke down what those sentences are, sort of where it would break if you were thinking it. So you kind of read it to yourself. And I said, okay, it seems like there's really 4 thought processes that she has here. So that's how I'm going to break it down, is into 4 pages, and then he'll split up the writing and the dialogue how he likes it. He may change it, he may add or subtract, but basically that's the idea. And then the other thing he did here, which is kind of cool, is he put a copy. This is a page from Guardians of the Galaxy by Jim Valentino. So whether you like the book, don't like the book, the characters, the artist, whatever, all he said was, hey, this is an example of a character who is an archer, who is surrounded by bad guys who are fighting, and I kind of want something like this, where it's, he's kicking this guy and then punching this person and then throwing him into another one and then punching somebody in the back and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what he was looking for in terms of the action and sort of the feel of this page. So as a writer, if you have that opportunity to give your artist sort of a flavor, I'm not going to copy this layout by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a great way to sort of lead somebody kind of where you want them to go, especially just in terms of a feel of how's this page supposed to feel, what's the action like, what's the mojo. So for me, I'm going to break it up into 4 panels, and I like to work directly on the page here, which is so blurry. Why is my focus so... There we go. I like to work directly on the page, so I'll lay it out real light with pencil that I can erase. Other people, I've talked about this in past videos, some people will do layouts on small pieces of paper and they'll blow it up. Some people will work large scale, other pieces of paper, little thumbnails, all that kind of stuff. I like to work it out directly on the page. I find sometimes if you take something that's drawn really small, really tight, and then you try to blow it up, to me, it loses some stuff. It loses some energy, or it loses, the little tiny fine lines you would draw in a real small drawing don't work with something this big. Let me see if I can, hang on one second. See if I can fix this focus. Properties. Sorry about that. Let's see if I can. Focus. Let's take the auto off the focus and see if it'll just stay. Better. Okay. So autofocus was really messing with me here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is break this down, like I said, into 4. So the first one, the page before, I don't want to give away too much, but real quick, here's sort of the last panel of the page before. So there's these bad guys, and our heroes are fighting bad guys and taking them out. And so this is a shift from one visual to another. So what I want to do is a fairly large panel at the top to establish her and what's going on. So I want to do kind of, I think I'm going to do something fairly large. Have her shooting her bow. Do I want to do it? I want to do it this way, where she's shooting it crossways. Maybe. Maybe kind of like this. Does that work? What do you think? So I'm left-handed. I always have to flip things around. So if I'm shooting a bow like this, and I was going to tilt it, I'd have to tilt it upside down because it's going to be on the inside. So if she tips it over, I don't know. Does it work? Well, let's see. Again, this is what this all is to see how all this stuff fits, how we like it. I like the idea of the angle, and that she's shooting, maybe like Lord of the Rings style. She's shooting multiple arrows. So she's let go of the string, and you see these arrows are zipping out. She's got kind of a headgear piece. She also has a really long ponytail or braid, which gives a lot of you can use as motion. So everything that I'm kind of pulling here is going again from that left to right. So hopefully you can see that. Let me get in a little closer on the top here. I know I'm drawing very light. I keep looking over at my computer to see, but I can look right here. Okay. So everything reads left to right, and then right to left, and then left to right to finish, right? That's how we're going to read this comic. So this is going to bring everybody to this corner this way, this action, boom. And then I'm going to have probably 2 panels here. Let me think. Or do I want to do 1 panel in the middle for panel 2, and then 3 and 4, something like that, right? So I can go boom, 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 boom like that. That's an option. I definitely like this, this motion, this energy. especially as well thing to remember in Western comics, right? Because we read left to right, um, you want that motion going left to right. That feels forward to us as readers. We feel that as positive energy and motion going forward. Whereas if you go the other way, if you show somebody flying the other way, for example, Superman flying this way feels faster than Superman flying that way. It's kind of crazy, but it's just a psychological thing of how we move and how we read, and so things to keep in mind as we're planning this out. So, but that does that, and then I did the other way. I'll do Quiver could be over here. It can move around. No big deal. So something like that, and then that gives her room for, thought balloon here, stuff like that. So now the second thing that she's talking about is how these people, even though they're not very good, they have advanced numbers. They have more people, and that the numbers will overwhelm them. So now she's shot, maybe, like I said, in the background, show that there's some people coming after her, right? They're trying to run up on her while she's shooting over here. Something like that. So you can see all I'm doing is just real squiggly form, loose lines, nothing important, nothing critical. So now we're going to kind of flip around and show how she shot some arrows at somebody, and now she's going to punch out some of these guys. So maybe, and show, so the line is but eventually their numbers will overwhelm us. So I want to show her maybe taking out a couple of guys at once. So I could have her. So she shot that way. So now we're flipping around, and maybe she's going to kick backwards. She is super strong. She's got these super long legs, so she can kind of be looking over her shoulder and boom, kicking one dude that way, while this arm is maybe punching this way. So she got one guy there, and then that braid's whipping around, and then we can show that this is the face of another guy. Like, just punch that guy, and he's reeling away, going, oh, boom. And then there's more, and then maybe some sort of horizon background. Here's like the people that she's already shot with those arrows over there at a distance. So she's surrounded, but she's taking them out. So then the next one, they'll take us out eventually if we don't get some kind of field strategy going. So again, maybe what I'll do is I'll shift this. I'll make this last panel smaller, make this one bigger. So she's punched out a couple. Now she's gonna spin and turn. So now we're gonna flip her back around to the front and see this arm coming around. So maybe. So here's the other thing I want to do. So here she's larger. Now this is middle. So what I don't want to do is another figure kind of the same size. I want to vary this size. And what I'm going to do at the end here is some sort of close up where she's looking in a different direction. So there's your close up, and you're going to see some of the other heroes fighting, because her last line is the others seem to be doing okay. So we'll see them flying around, fighting. So there's your close up. So I've got fairly big, medium. So here in this one, I want to be a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller. A little bit. And then, and then again, I can cheat that over. If I'm going to do smaller figures, I don't need quite as much space, so I can add more of her face in there. And then, so this arm was forward. Now she's spinning, and she could be punching that. So this is spinning that way. So this person is getting decked. And then this leg that kicked would have had to come forward to counterbalance. So that foot's going there, maybe. Boom, boom. So you can see I've really twisted her form, almost like a dancer, which is, oh yeah, this one has the bow in it, so she's hitting him with the bow, bang. And then that's coming around, her braid is coming around. So maybe she punched another guy this way, so now there's another guy getting dropped. His head's spinning around, so he's getting dropped down here. Boom. Maybe she clocked a couple. All right, so do speed line, action line to show that her arm is followed through that way. Boom, boom. These guys are getting decked. So something kind of like that. This one's a little rougher than these other ones. So I have less of a plan here, but this I like. I like the flow. It comes here, and maybe what I do is, instead of her braid going that way, maybe I whip the braid around. So the arrows, and I can even, if I want, I could break the plane to show these arrows are flying away from her. And then these lines connect here, which connects here to this guy, which comes back down to here, and then this arm pulls us back. So that gives us our flow through the page for the reader, which is what we're looking for. So I like that. So then what I will do from here is I'll start to work on just the mechanics of the page. And I've talked about this in other videos for anybody who has seen any of my other videos. When you're talking about how you ink the page or lay out the page, you do have to border the panels. And you have to decide how much space you want between them. For the gutters, do you not want gutters? Do you want it to be just a line? Things like that. And then you can also shake things up a little bit. So like, just to make things interesting. Let's see. So what I like to do, at least with this top one, I know what I want to have here. I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to figure out where it needs to be. So I'm looking at about that's a quarter, that's a half. So about a ½ inch from this line is where I want it here. So I can do that. Which is another reason I really like these pre-lined pages. So if you could see the light blue lines, there's dashes, things that explain to you like where it would be when it's printed where to be trimmed versus where the dialogue can go, how far the art has to go, and then it gives you sort of these lines here that break the page up into different thirds if you wanted, stuff like that. And I like to just use them as general guidelines. I find it to be really easy to just, like I said, here I just measured a 1/2 inch from that line, so it helps out. And then I'll get a nice straight line there. And then from there I like to go, and I like to do about 1/4 of an inch typically. So if I do 1/4 of an inch, I'll be down here, which I don't know if I want it that thick. Plus these are going to break the border. So what I could do actually with this one is it'd be all right to go up 1/4. And as long as you're consistent with it, I think that's the key. Again, I've never been told a comic book border has to be a certain size or a certain thickness or distance between the two panels. So for me, I just kind of keep it consistent throughout the page, and it works. There's times when I can do that. I can do this in half if I'm really struggling for space. And there's other pages where you don't do any panel borders. So it just depends on what what you're looking for, and what the end goal is, what the end result is. So here we're going to go about 1 inch from there. And it's nice to see when I measure it out that it's fairly close to where I kind of eyeballed it. But I've done it before where I've just been working this way real loose on my layout, and the one line is up here and it goes completely crooked, and it's not even close to being something that would make sense. So measuring them out can be super important. And then we'll do the same thing here. Okay, and then same thing. I got to measure across to figure out where I want this line. And again, I make it easy on myself as far as my measurements go. So like, if I kind of estimated, it looks like it's about 5 3/4, but it's not exactly 5 3/4 where I made this little mark. That's fine. I'm going to put it at like 5 3/4. And not really worry about it. I'll go to those nice even measurements and adjust accordingly, just because it's a lot easier to measure than it is to measure like 7 and 8 16ths is half. 7 and 7/32 or something crazy like that. So just make it easy on yourself. And then again, because I have a lot of action here, I've got a lot of stuff happening, I want to give that as much room as I can. This is a close-up. It's really about just a side of the face, so I don't need quite as much room. So I can go put my border onto that side of sort of where I planned, and I'm okay with that. Okay. Now, you can go a couple of different ways here with this. I've got my borders, I've got my figure roughs in. I can just go to town. I can start penciling and start drawing, firming up these lines, figuring out where I want the characters to all be, working out the details, all that stuff. The other thing that I will often do is I will go ahead and often ink in these borders that I just drew. And the reason I do that is because I know that whatever I draw in pencil here is eventually going to be erased. And if I need to erase the pencil because it's getting too messy or the line's not where I want it to be, whatever the case may be, I run the risk of then erasing part of that border and not knowing where it's going to be. So if I'm very solid on those, I can go ahead and ink those. And I think that's just about what I'm going to do, except like I said, I do want these, I like the idea of these arrows breaking the border. So because they're in front, I've got to do the arrows first, right? So I have to sort of figure this out a little bit. And there are rules. there are a million rules. Every rule is made to be broken in some way. So what they would tell you is you don't break the borders. Your panel, your action is supposed to be happening inside that border. But when something breaks out of it, it creates more depth within for your reader. Like this thing is even coming out even more than her arm or a hand or whatever. But what you can't do is you don't want to break the border at certain parts. Like you don't want to do it at a joint of a figure. So you don't want their wrist breaking the border and having their hand on the other side because it doesn't read correctly. It's weird. So you just have to be careful about how you do break the borders. I don't do it a lot, but I think this would be kind of a cool, just a cool opportunity to do it. And I think it will add a little, again, energy and direction to what we're trying to do here with these arrows just being loosed and flying off the bow. So there's not a ton of perspective, so I absolutely could have done a perspective grid to make sure that these are going back in space correctly. But you're not going to see a lot of it, and so honestly I'm sort of faking it, which is okay. And then I'm going to add the fletching to her arrows, and so that's kind of like that. Again, this is not the final line either, right? This is still rough drawing, but a little less rough than what I did before. And that's, for me, that's really my process when I'm doing these pages, is to draw something like, as you've seen here, very, very rough, very fast, bubbles, shapes, forms, simple lines, and then go on top of that and add more and add more and add more until I have close enough to what I want the final product to be, where I can then come in with my ink and ink it accurately, ink it completely. So that is my plan. Now, if you've never seen any of my videos, let me very, very quickly explain. For those who have, thank you again for dropping by. I appreciate all of your patronage. I use a lot of different tools throughout the process of while I'm working. Let me talk real quick about the pencils. All the pencils I use pretty much at this point are mechanical pencils, strictly because it's very easy. I don't have to stop and use a sharpener, regular pencil sharpener, electric pencil sharpener, a fancy for lead holder pencil sharpener. I can just click, click, keep going. I have this one that I used at first. This one is, I don't know where I got it. It's an Italian lead holder, and it just holds a big stick of very soft lead. You can see it's worn down to an angle, and I use that flat angle when I'm working on my rough layouts. It gives me a soft line. It's very easy to erase. It's fairly light, and I'm not digging into the paper. So if I go ahead and erase it, no problem. I can come right back in. I haven't dug into the paper like I would with my other pencil. This mechanical pencil is a Pilot, just a standard thing you buy at an office supply store. Nothing fancy. I use an HB lead, sometimes a 2H lead. Um, Again, very standard, run of the mill, no big deal lead stuff you buy at Walmart or wherever, Office Max, Office Depot, whatever. Nothing fancy. Again, it's something that I can get a lot of it. I can click through it real fast and no big deal. Eraser. This is a kneaded art eraser. I use this probably 99% of the time, so I try to buy these in bulk whenever I can. This is a way to erase your pencils without tearing up the paper or roughing up that surface. If you're like me, if you like a nice smooth surface to your paper. You can also use this over ink. So once I ink over the pencil lines, there's always going to be some pencil lines left behind that you need to erase. This, when you use this, will take up the pencil without pulling the ink up from the page. So these are really good. I do also have one of these great big white, Big Daddy erasers. If I got to a point where I was like, nope, this isn't working, and I really got to get in there. It will rough up the paper a little bit, so you got to be careful with those. And then the other main eraser I use is this small, so it's the same version as the white one there, just real small. So like if I wanted to come in and erase where the border crosses over these arrow shafts, I could do that without theoretically erasing the other lines, right? So just a eraser to get into narrow, small areas, faces, things of that nature. So that's kind of my basic penciling stuff. Of course, rulers, triangles, templates, all that good jazz. Also, actually, if I can find one, I will probably use one of these on the curve of the bow. So this is called a French curve. And when you get these, it's a template. It comes in a set. There's several variations, sizes, and roll shapes and stuff. But it has all these different arcs and curves and things so that you can line it up the way you want it. But a bow is this long curve, and it's hard to get that long curvature look just with a straight hand. So something like this is probably I'll probably be using this to sort of help me out to give me kind of that curve, something like that. So again, a good template to have, French curves, really good thing to have in your arsenal over time. All right, so, but here, again, we're still rough, so that's like that. Oh, and then the other thing that I'm doing, you'll see me glancing a few times. And I got a question. K-Pac has a question. I'll be right back to your question. So one of the things I glanced to the side is I have reference. So I drew, these are one of the teams of superheroes. So this is actually, a lot of the superheroes are fighting in this sequence, and this is the character that we're going to be doing. And this was just a quick, so I drew it, inked it, scanned it, and then I printed out a picture and then very quickly just colored it with some basic markers as a color guide, so we know what color people's costumes are. That's all that was for. But I keep it over here so that I can have the details of, like, what does her belt look like? How many pouches does it have on it? Where is the star on her shoulder exactly? Stuff like that. What does her bow look like? So I keep that reference to the side over here, so I can always glance over to it. Same with the script. Script's on the other side, so I can always come back after that. So K-Pac asks a question. How do you determine what angles you will draw your characters from and your lighting? So, great question. They're two different things, and in my mind, they are separate from one another. So what I mean is, first, what angles will I draw my characters from? So there's, as you can see here, what I've done with the storytelling, it determines a lot of it. So in my mind, as I read the script, I'm seeing the picture in my head like a movie, and I'm trying to pull out those kind of camera shots that a director would do if this was a movie. So But at this point from here, we're looking straight onto the character. If I wanted to, I could have tilted it so we were looking down on the character, or I could have brought the camera lower so we're looking up at her. But part of this storyline is that there's a lot of bad guys. They're not super powered, but there's a lot of them. So if I tilted it up and you look down on her, you would get a narrower viewpoint. You wouldn't be able to see what's coming behind her, which are these other bad guys coming behind her that she then is going to punch and kick and fight off. So for me, that's one of the reasons in this sequence why I kept the camera kind of at what I would call this mid straight shot, like a person is standing on the same ground as her holding a camera filming her, as opposed to a crane from way up above or down on the ground shooting up, because I want to be able to see what's behind. However, that changes with the story. If you have a flying character, one of the great ways to show flying in the sense that they are up above is to look up at them. So instead of drawing Superman's face with his body all behind him, if you put the camera kind of down here a little bit, let me show you real quick. If you put the camera down low underneath him, you see more. So the idea would be, let me get a pen so you can see what I'm talking about. So I use the flying character, sort of the flying Superman, if you will, as an example here, right? So if I want to draw Superman and he and I are looking eye to eye and he's flying, so his head's going to be here, his eyes, his hair, so that's how you know it's Superman. Now most of his body is going to be behind his head because he flies this way, right? So now you've got to do a lot of foreshortening, which means that his fist is closer to you, and then behind his fist is his arm, and then his shoulder, and then another shoulder, the bottom of his chest, and his other arm's going out, and then a cape. So that is Superman coming at you. Perfectly good angle, but that puts the reader on the exact same level as Superman. You are what Superman is looking at. This is great if you want to have that point of view of the bad guy who's like, what was that noise? Oh no, there's Superman's fist, and then boom, a big hit, right? A big explosion. Let's pretend I am an onlooker from the ground, and I see Superman, and now I look up, and here's the bottom of his chin, and there's his hair, and now the same thing. His left arm is going to be forward. His other arm's out. His chest. And his cape, right? So that's still Superman. That's basically the same, right? The idea is that's the same picture, just now I'm looking up. So who's seeing your character? If it's a pedestrian or the news, and the news footage is going, look, the alien is attacking the building, but hey, it's Superman, then you want to be that up angle. If, again, you're the bad guy and Superman's coming to punch you and the next thing is this big pow punch, then having him come straight at you is the right angle. So that's some of the ways that you can use to pick what angle you're going to draw the characters in. Now, once you draw these characters, now this is how the lighting comes into play. So I always don't worry about the lighting first. Do the characters in the position you need them in, then figure out where your lighting is coming from. So Superman is flying in the sky, and the sun is up here, because the sun is always up in the sky, right? So the sun is up here. Then he's going to have shadows that would be more in this vein over here. So this underneath his hand, bottom of his knuckles, under his, so you're going to have his Superman logo, but you're going to have, if you can see the bottom of his legs, anything behind here and under his head. So under his nose, under his lip, maybe even his eyes. So that's how I would then figure out where my shadows would go based on that. Okay, so that's there. Now, same thing. Superman's flying above me. The sun is up in the sky. It's going to be further away because I'm on the ground now. So the sun is here, but it's going to be the same thing under his chin because it's going to hit really the back of him. So more of him maybe in shadows. And that's how I would be lighting it, is figuring out. And you could even draw if you want, if this helps you, if you're learning, how do you draw the lines? Like you could literally draw the sun lines. Like these are sunbeams. Do it in pencil so you can erase it. And where the sunbeams, because it's all going to be nice parallel lines, where it hits your figure, that part's going to be lit up. On the opposite side of that, it's going to be shadow. It's that basic, that simple. And then it's artistic choice of how much shadow you want to do. Is there light from the city coming up? So that way, this edge of Superman. So there might be some lights coming up this way. Maybe that's right. The camera that's filming Superman flying. Maybe that's what's lighting him up from that side. So that is my answer to how you determine what angles you draw. The story and how you want to explain the story helps determine what your angles are. And then once you've done that, then you can put your lighting in place. So I hope that answers your question, or at least gets somewhat close to answering your question. But I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for asking, because that is a great question for young artists, for sure. Fantastic question. So here's another tip that I would give you. So you can see I've got these arrows. The arrows are going to go in front of the border. Some of the arrow is going to be, and the sort of speed lines coming off the arrow because they're shooting out, are going to be in front of her bow and in front of her hand. And I want to draw through how's her bow? Yeah. So it kind of curves. I kind of drew a weird bow. Drew it like this crazy recurvy bow. I may have to fudge it. Anyway, so I'm still drawing. I'm going to draw her hand through it as opposed to like stopping and starting. And then that way I know I've drawn all of the parts that I need to draw, because I'll just erase it after anyway, right? But if you have to draw things through other things, so if something's behind something else, just draw it. Draw through it and then erase, the lines you don't want afterwards. Especially it happens a lot with clothes. I've talked about it, I think, in other videos where, people will draw their figure and they draw the clothes, but they don't draw the figure underneath. And so it doesn't work right. So draw your figure, draw your whole shape of your figure, draw the clothes on top of them. Like this is going to be just your regular, these people are regular people. They're not super villains or anything like that. So I'm going to draw his, the shoulder, the back muscles, real loose, the spine, this arm, the arm coming forward, the hand, oof, because he's just got kicked in the solar plexus, his leg, right? Then I can go ahead and go, well, maybe he's got like a really, big baggy shirt. If I put the big baggy shirt over, then I'm going to erase all these lines underneath, which is fine. But I know that the shoulder of the shirt fits where his shoulder should be. And I'm not faking the anatomy underneath. Same thing here. So I've drawn, these are going to overlap stuff. That is okay. Okay. So I think that's enough there that I feel okay about the arrows. Let's see. I'll start, very easy. I'm going to start at the top. And again, if you've seen any of my videos, you'll know. So this is a Faber-Castell Pitt pen. It is the F for fine, I guess, would be the size. It doesn't have measurements. It comes in like S, F, M for small, fine, medium, I guess. B for brush, stuff like that. So I use this again, just consistently with my panel borders. That way they're all the same. I don't know if panel borders, nobody's ever told me panel borders have to be drawn at a certain thickness or with a certain type of pen or anything like that. So in the books, I've drawn a lot of books, a lot of comics that have gone to print just fine, so I don't think it's an issue. But I like to, again, just stay consistent. So I'll pick this, I pick this one pen. To me, I know it says fine, but to me it's sort of a medium line. It's not too thin, it's not too thick, so it doesn't interfere with the actual art of the panel inside itself. So I use this pen to rule out and draw my borders. I am going to switch back to a slightly thinner one to do the arrows. So when I do the contour lines of whatever's going on in the panels, I pretty much draw everything with this Pigment Micron 01. And then I can ink over it afterwards with a thicker line. I like it. I find if, I have other pens that are bigger. Like I could draw with this medium, which is, you can see the difference between the two as far as the thickness. So this will draw a much thicker line, and I know that these arrows are closer, so the outline would be a lot thicker. So I could very easily just draw with this to begin with, but for some reason I just find, I don't know, I find that drawing with that thicker line to start with, I don't know if it's messier or what, but for whatever reason I don't like it. I'd rather add to the line later, and that's just me. So, but whatever works for you. If you saw the last video I did, I mentioned it a number of times because I was inking another drawing, not a page but another drawing, and when I was explaining my process of how I draw everything with a thin line to start, and then I go in and add ink to thicken up the line weights where I want them for depth, for shading, etc. And the thing I kept telling everybody in the video was it's a lot easier to add ink than it is to take away ink. So for me, I'd rather draw a thinner line to start with and then have to thicken it up than draw a very thick line that I don't like and then have to come in with a pen and try to somehow thin that out. It's not going to work. So, unfortunately. So, that is what I like to do. And then I'll do that after. So again, there's going to be the comic book language of speed lines. We know that you can't see the motion of the air as things zip through it, at least with your naked eye, but that's kind of what the motion lines are, speed lines are in comics, is to let you know that this thing has traveled from point A to point B extremely fast. And so those lines help to establish that. So that's what I'm going to do with these arrows once I get to that point. The first thing I want to do though is just draw the arrows, and then like we said, I'm going to work on the bow, the hand, the arm, all this stuff in pencil first, get it all right, then I'll go in and ink the speed lines on top of the pencils. So let's see here. What else can I share with you as I go? Um, Again, thank you so much for checking this out, and I hope you're enjoying your New Year's Eve. Here's to 2023. If anybody does have any other questions along the way, if you want to ask about my process, technique, tips, tricks, if you want to ask about the comic, what am I drawing, or the characters, or anything like that, if you want to talk about what you're looking forward to seeing in 2023, things like that, if you're watching and you want to participate, let me know. I do have the chat up and I can see, and like I said, K-Pac had a great question earlier, which I really appreciate. It was a very, very good question, and I'm always happy to go through that with everybody. It helps, because one of the hardest things about doing these videos, at least live, or where I want to do commentary live, that's difficult, is the sound. So normally, I don't sit and talk to myself, maybe in my head a little bit, but I'm not talking out loud while I'm drawing. Usually I have music on, or an audio book, or a sporting event, or something going on in the background that I could sort of listen to. And with YouTube, of course, you can't do that because of the copyright and stuff. So here I'm sort of I'm drawing along and having to think of things to ramble on about, and listen to my own voice. So if you're interested, you want to participate in the video, drop something in the chat if you're watching, or even if you just want to let me know you're watching, say hi, Happy New Year, things like that. That's cool too. And if I will leave this up on my channel, so if anybody wants to watch it in a rerun, of course you can't live chat, but I do check for comments and things like that, and questions. So if you have any comments, you have any questions, feel free to leave those for me. Appreciate that. When sometimes some of the videos I've done, and I do like doing it that way, is I've done it with voiceover. So I'll sit down and I'll draw, and I'll just turn the mic off, the camera, and draw and just record, and then I can come back later and do a voiceover and explain what's going on and things like that. I like that. It's a lot of work though, because I have to actually sit down with the editing software and record the voiceover. And if I make a mistake, or I stumble over words, or I get the timing off or something like that, that could take a lot of time to stop and edit and re-record and stuff like that. So I like the live. But both have their advantages. So again, if you're watching, whether you're watching today or you're watching this in a rerun, if you have a preference over, if you like live video, live drawing versus recorded lesson kind of stuff, drop a comment. Let me know what you prefer. I'm interested in hearing what other people like. I know when I'm watching artists that I enjoy seeing, I do like watching live, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get back to doing live. But everybody has a different feel. So let's see. So this is a super cool character. I think people are gonna really like her. She is a legacy character, meaning she's a second generation superhero. Her mom was a superhero, and she is cool. She's tough. She's strong. Um, she's a little bit aggressive, borderlining on violent at times, fiercely loyal, and so far we haven't really seen her let loose. As far as at this point in the storyline, we've seen, a couple other characters um, getting to show off a little bit at what they can do, but this is going to be one of her first real kind of fight scenes. I know I'm very excited about showing her off. It's super cool. Like, it's really really fun to work with somebody who's work with a writer who has this vision, and we start talking about the characters like they're real people, and oh yeah, this she's gonna do this, and this character's gonna do that, and, oh, I can't wait to see when she does this or that, and as well, it's the reaction of the readers and the fans when they see it, when they're like, oh man, that's cool. That really, we really dig that. That really gets us excited. And so yeah, this is one of those characters that we've been waiting for this moment and talking about it. The writer, myself, about like, oh man, that's gonna be so cool. When we get to the page when Andromeda like goes crazy, like that's gonna be so cool. And here we are. There was another one that happened, I think 2 pages ago, where we have another character who is super cool and has sort of a real, I won't give too much away, but she's got a like a, I'll say ninja type of vibe, ninja assassin kind of vibe, and yeah, she goes crazy on some of these bad guys, and we just let her cut loose, and it's super cool. It's super fun to do it and be like, here we go, here's superhero mayhem. They're literally taking no prisoners, right? And it is cool to see that. So here's another example of what I was talking about, right? Where the bow is in front of her. So I want to make sure that I'm drawing through where I think that bow would be, not just up to it, so that I'm getting all the right lines all the way through as I go. I don't want to short it and make wrong choices in the lines and where things connect up and stuff like that, because especially the human body is a real, like, oh, there was a problem with the server. There is a real, like, how do I put it, puzzle factor, if you will, to the human body and how it connects, and this has to connect to that, and this part has to connect to that, and stuff like that. So if it's off, we all know it, and you know it immediately, and it looks super weird, and we're all like, that's not how that goes, and it's very strange. So important that we do it correctly by drawing through objects, through figures, stuff like that. And her costume. So her costume is kind of off one shoulder, and then it's there. It goes like that, and then this is this metal part, theoretically to protect her arm, even though she wouldn't need it. And then it goes like that. She's got a belt, pouch. Everybody's got pouches. So that was another thing that is actually really cool about this book and these characters that we're really excited to show folks is the fact that this is a multi-generational superhero story. So you have, an original team of superheroes. You have the second generation, which would have been like their sidekicks, who grow up and become their own heroes, and then those heroes take on their own sidekicks. So this is like the third generation we're seeing here, and then eventually in the story, they want to branch out and sort of become their own heroes and take on their own sidekicks because they're becoming adults as well. So it's this generational span of these heroes, which is super cool. And what I got to do is, take everything and design it. I'll design all the characters from the start. So we had these sort of iconic first generation characters. And then, so if this character has, like her mom had stars on her uniform in spots and had this same kind of headband. So I wanted to, so you repeat some of these motifs. So she's got a star on her shoulder. She's got this this motif, the belt also that she has. You can't see it here, but it mimics this shape. But then you add it like, so what would the daughter of a superhero, like how would she dress? Like she's going to be more, younger. And so maybe instead of bright colors, like her top's going to be black. She's going to be sort of black and silver and gold is kind of her color motif. So being able to play off it and do different generations throughout was super, super fun. And, is a really cool thing that I'm looking forward to for people to see and look at those designs, and you can see where the inspiration for one character came from, the ones before. So now I have to figure out how's this hand going to go? So it's releasing the bowstring. So it's going to be, she's drawn it back. So kind of here like that, maybe. And then that means maybe the bow's got to be lower. Maybe the bow goes like that. That works. So again, this is why we do this, why I do this, where I can just work through it, and I'm working in this pencil and going, okay, I kind of like that better. Cool. Come in with this and lightly erase up here where that original bow was going to go. I think I like moving it down a little more. So that, and then that finger, her hand. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. And then that way I can do the bow the way I had drawn it. Where it goes out and then in and then out, out and in and then out like that. And then the string's going to be straight because it has snapped and these arrows are loose. Yeah, that works. That works for me. And again, thank you for checking out the video. I appreciate it so much. And I want to, to let you know that we're super excited for the launch of the book coming out soon. The plan is for the first issue to come out in the beginning of 2023. As I said, the first issue is completely drawn. So now it's really just about getting our organizational ducks in a row, if you will, to be able to launch a campaign and start to put together not only what it's going to take for you to get the book in your hands, but all the cool extras that we want to do with the book and get it to you. So I appreciate that so much as well. If you have the opportunity and you're enjoying the video, whether you're watching it live or you've watched it on replay, you feel free, please hit like if you like it, subscribe to the channel. I am working on, I say it all the time, getting more frequent videos to you. I really am going to be working on that. Part of the hard part about drawing a comic like this, especially this one, there are a lot of spoilers, and there are things that I don't want you guys to see ahead of time too much and ruin the surprise, because there's some really cool story beats that are going to be very important. And if you saw the page, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And we don't want to do that. So sometimes there are just pages that I can't show. But at the same time, there are other projects and other drawings that I could do. In the past, I did reviews. If you go back on the channel, you'll see I've done like critiques of my old art, reviews of my old projects. I'd like to look at artwork that I enjoy, to share that with you and some of my influences. I'm also looking to eventually work on Whatnot. I have a Whatnot channel, and I'd like to do some auctions with you guys. I have original art, I have sketch covers, things like that I think people would enjoy. And but we're just waiting till after the holidays, of course. So anyway, that's all the stuff that, a lot of stuff that I have planned for 2023. Let's take a look here. It's been an hour, so I think I'm going to wrap up. I thank you all so much for checking this out and kind of seeing my process of how I start with something like this, again, which is a description of all this is the character's thought bubbles, as she is fighting, and then an example of like, hey, I want her taking out a whole bunch of guys, kind of bouncing around, boom 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 boom. That's all I had as a description from the script. So I took that, figured out how I wanted to do it, how many panels I wanted to break it down into, what I wanted the angles to look like, how I wanted the choreography, the movement to go, that not only tells the story of what's happening, but also moves your eye through the page. So hopefully we've been able to do that, and I've been able to share my thoughts with you on how I do it. Hopefully it helps for you. I will continue to work on this, and I will be showing you updates in the near future. So thanks. Happy New Year to everybody. Appreciate all of your support throughout the year. And here's to 2023. Keep your eyes open for the just. Thanks.